What's up, guys, and welcome back into another fantasy football mock draft video on the Brenden Schaeffer Fantasy Football channel. Hit that subscribe button if you like this type of content throughout the month of August to get you set for the fantasy season. And if you'd like to sign up for Underdog, I have the promo code right there on the screen. Promo code is BSHAFE. You can sign up with that promo code to claim your free pick, plus first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash when it comes to the Underdog Pick'em game. But you also can do some best ball drafts on there. If you feel like your mock drafts are maybe wasting your time, you can put a few dollars per draft on real players that are really going to be guys you can root for throughout the season with your Underdog drafts. But we did a mock draft last time on the channel from the 1.7 here, and we want to continue to give you different looks and different possibilities for the way your drafts may unfold in a 12-team PPR league. So we're going to go from the 1.2 draft position this time around and change it up a little bit to give you some differing perspectives. It's interesting. We see Bijan Robinson go number one here. I kind of was intending to show you a draft where we lock in an anchor at the RB position early, but I think if you're given this gift in a PPR format, you take it. And so this is just mocking on the sleeper platform against the computer, basically, and the ADPs will change throughout the month of August, and I think it'll get sharper as time goes along. But certainly I'm going to take Jamar Chase if you are going to give him to me, especially in the format that I have lined up here, 3 wide receivers. We're going to be doing multiple mock draft videos per day, and as it gets a little closer, and I think we can start to fill the rooms, I will go live on YouTube right here on this channel with these types of drafts, and so you can actually draft against me as we all just try to learn and get better before our real drafts happen toward the end of the month. Jamar Chase was our first pick, so we feel pretty good about that. We do maybe want to leave the early rounds with at least one running back if we can, but I am going to have a hard time not taking Glad McConkey in a PPR format at the end of round 2. So we're going to lock him in, and that gives us a really strong start here at the wide receiver position, which probably means if we're going to draft a running back here soon, it's going to preclude us potentially from the strategy that I performed in my last video, where I took an early quarterback in Jaden Daniels in the middle of the 3rd round and showed how that can unlock roster upside by taking an early elite quarterback. I could do it here with Lamar Jackson if I really wanted to. We see him oftentimes go in the 2nd round, but here he is in the 3rd. But to demonstrate, and look, we're maybe going to be going a little heavier into one team than I want, but if there's a team to do it with, it could be the Bengals in 2025 because I don't know that they've quite fixed their defense, and we think Jamar Chase and Chase Brown could end up doing some scoring. So getting Chase Brown in the 3rd, he's a name that I do like in that range. It's a little early where we took him, but like I said, ADPs are going to continue to change and shift. So we've got Jamar Chase, Glad McConkey anchoring the receiving core, and then Chase Brown there as our one running back. Would we like to potentially lean into another running back? Marion Hampton being here at the back of the 4th feels like a pretty good value. I don't think that's going to be a regular thing that happens. And another name that we're looking at is Rashee Rice. My guess is if you're drafting with real people, Marion Hampton probably makes it through the 4-5 turn because that guy's already got 2 running backs. But I would think that on this platform, we may have ended up getting sniped there if we were really wanting to lock in Hampton as our RB2. It would have been interesting to do it the other way. But again, you can't read too much into the sleeper computer ADP when it comes to strategy stuff because, again, they might just take a 3rd running back because they're not going to behave the way a normal real person would behave potentially. And so we did take Hampton there. You could go either way with that. There's some wide receivers that we still really like. I'm going to scroll down just a bit and grab Xavier Worthy here. Again, I would have taken Rice at 5.2 because I think there will be an early suspension for him, but that it's possible if you're drafting effectively to get really good depth in the middle rounds at the receiver position. And, of course, our top 2 guys, Chase McConkey, we can take a little risk with our wide receiver 3. So I would have done that, but Rice ended up going just before us. I just wanted to get, I'm trying to get out there player takes as well as helping you guys devise some strategy when you get into your drafts. My player take is that Rashee Rice is the number 1 on the Chiefs when he's not suspended. Hopefully that suspension comes out, and honestly, the longer the better for me, because if it's a 6-game suspension, he could end up dropping down draft boards. He won't drop down mine because I believe he'll be available for the playoffs, and that's really where I'm looking to count on it. Wide receiver, we're going to try to fill our flex always with a wide receiver in a PPR format, and so we'll draft Jordan Addison. Talk about another guy who's got some legal trouble and could end up with a suspension. His should be rather brief, But like I said, if you've watched other videos on the channel, you'll know I am always trying to land in this format where we start 3 receivers. 1 could be there in the flex for PPR and 5 bench spots in a 12-team league. I am generally looking to leave my draft with 6 wide receivers. And right here, there's a guy in Rome Odunze that I really do think could be a nice play. And because we've got 2 running backs already, we're not really looking to fill our running back room out just yet. I'm going leaner at the running back position this year. Last year, all of the guys in the mid-rounds like Joe Mixon and James Conner and Alvin Kamara, the older players that normally I would bet on those types of guys to get injured and be very poor picks for fantasy, Aaron Jones, they all panned out. They all did so well last year. And so I think the overcorrection is going to come where people are going to kind of assume it's going to be just like last year, and they're going to continue to draft these players. You can look in this draft, Mixon and Connor going in the 5th round. I won't draft them in any leagues. I just won't have any of them unless it's a auction value league where I nominate them for $1 and nobody bids. That's sort of the only way that I see it happening. Instead, I want to look for guys with future upside because they're young. Tyler Warren's going to be the example here that I click. Nope, it gave me ETN, and it's autoed me. Give me just a moment. We're going to fix this. It's going to take a second to do it. That's the one thing is you don't always get perfect responsiveness here when it comes to sleeper. Let me try and do something here real quick. You guys saw me click for Tyler Warren, and so he is who I'm going to give myself in that round. This is an example, though, of why it can be fun to do some of these mocks on sleeper because you can play around and mess around with some things. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get rid of that clicking sound. Let's mute that for a minute as we just work. And it did give me Warren. I don't know what happened there. It's like it said ETN at first, and it gave me him, but it auto-drafted me anyway. Okay. Hopefully, possibly I can refresh this draft and end up being just fine here. But as you can see, when you're using it as a tool to learn and to improve your draft strategy, you can do things like I did there and just say, no. That's not. There we go. We're back in the saddle here. That's not what I meant to do. Let's actually utilize this time. And instead of, in a real draft, if something happened like that, you would be pretty bummed out. I'm going to say, no, it's cool. We're just going to cancel that out because we actually want to use this to figure out what the best move could be for our roster. Right now, we're lacking a quarterback. I just think if you don't go early quarterback, you really can't afford to wait on it a little bit. But because there is such a long run between now and my next turn to pick, let's grab one that I like. Again, I'm an upside fiend. I'm always looking for guys that have upside. And I do have Rome Odunze drafted on my bench. The sleeper ADP on Odunze, it's not like I'm obsessed with him, but I find that I keep drafting him because in the 7th round, I think a year 2 wide receiver always has the potential to break out. And I'm going to take that bet every time, which is, again, why when I'm thinking early rounds, don't get me wrong, I love CeeDee Lamb every year. I love these early wide receivers. Puka's great. Malik Neighbors is great. Brian Thomas, I love. Lamb McConkey, I love him so much I drafted him here at the back of the 2nd. But a lot of times I'm going to probably be looking the running back position in those early rounds, not necessarily to get 2 like I did here with Omarion Hampton in the 4th, but simply because, as we probably are going to have to make a pick here. Let's draft one more receiver. It confused it out again. Nope, and it autoed me again. So that's just something we're learning about on the sleeper platform. I was a little bit quicker to get back there and remove it this time. It told me I had Ferguson, and then it switched me to Keon Coleman, which is what I... Nope. Damn it. I messed it up again. Which is what I wanted. I'm getting better about being able to, run through this stuff and change it. I don't want to be auto-picked. I'm not currently auto-picked. So hopefully that is better for what we're doing. And hopefully this shows up decently on the video. Yeah, I think this will be fine. Scroll down. All right, we got 15 seconds. We're learning as we go. Hopefully this is still valuable, even though we've had some issues here. But our whole lineup is stocked, and now's where I am going to circle back and start to look at possibilities for running back. Don't take him every time, but I'll take Tank Bigsby in this spot just to demonstrate stylistically what I'm trying to do. A lot of my drafts sort of mirror each other, but I want to be able to show and expose people to different players that I have some belief in. Like a Luther Burden that goes in the 12th there, that's a really nice pick. but I already had Odunze. We're just looking for upside on our bench, right? 2 year 2 wide receivers in Odunze and Coleman. Tank Bigsby I think he was a rookie last year, if not 2 years ago. And again, we're just looking for guys that could emerge in running back rooms. I don't feel the need to draft probably the rest of my bench with running backs. I'll probably get a fourth one. That's the minimum. You could go with 4 or 5. Bashal Tutin is in the same backfield as Tank Bigsby and didn't end up going anywhere. I took Trey Benson last time. He's a good pick. Let's take Dylan Sampson, who could end up being a real winner when you consider the Quinshon Judkins suspension or like just his situation in general. That's another player. Like, again, not obsessed with him. I like Garendo more, but he didn't fall back to me. Jaden Blue I took in the last draft. You're just looking for running backs off the bench with this style that don't bother rostering the running backs that you don't see potentially emerging as true studs that are able to help your lineup. Here's something I'm going to do here. I'm going to take Isaiah Likely as my tight end 2 just to demonstrate another strategy that I think could be really valuable in fantasy. Isaiah Likely, I believe, is needing a surgery. He's either already had the surgery or is about to, and I'll show you the full draft board here. And so to take him in the last round, I don't have kickers or defense on this draft setting, but if I did, I would still do it the same way. I wouldn't draft a kicker or a defense. I would load in a guy who's maybe going to miss week 1, especially if you have primarily if you have an IR slot in your league setting. This is a strategy to employ late. Isaiah Likely, all right, I think if he were healthy, he would be somebody I would be targeting, not quite as high as I took Tyler Warren, but certainly in above Jonnu Smith and maybe in that Tucker Kraft area of the draft, maybe Dalton Kincaid, maybe a little later than that. That's still not a crazy obvious upside play, but I think that Isaiah Likely is really a wide receiver masquerading at the tight end position. So if I can find those guys that have short-term injuries and I would be able to stash them on IR real quick early in my season, and then if I have to pick up a kicker or a defense, it's even easier to do that. That's another strategy that I want to make sure to highlight in this video. That's the name of the game. These are the types of things that we will continue to be talking about here on this channel throughout the month of August. Regular videos, daily videos, if I can find a way to pull it off. But let's just recap the team that we have here. Caleb Williams is the quarterback. Again, if I'm not picking one early, I'm waiting until like round 9 or 10 and getting one of these types of guys. Sure, Mahomes could fall, but he went in the 5th round here. I would be looking for Mahomes more in the late 6th or 7th round if I'm going to consider it. And I'm not really taking guys like Mayfield, guys like Goff. Bo Nix maybe has a little rushing upside, but I would rather go in this Kyler tier, in this Caleb Williams tier, if I'm going to be looking for the quarterback that I don't just like. I would be just fine waiting for Drake May if I really felt like every value that I was picking up in the draft was worthwhile. But at that point in the draft, it was starting to sour on some of the names that I saw coming up on the ADP list, and so Caleb Williams is a guy that I happen to like. Chase Brown and Marion Hampton, I think there's a ton of upside in that RB room. I can be excited about that. Maybe don't need 2 Chargers. 2 Chargers, 2 Bengals is a little bit risky, but like I said, the Bengals offense I'm very high on. Chargers, we'll see, but Ladd McConkey and Hampton are the 2 guys you'd want, so we feel okay about that. Chase, McConkey, Worthy. Addison, a little bit of suspension risk, and so again, that's why I love having 6 wide receivers. Odunze and Keon Coleman are 2 year 2 wide receivers that should step forward this year, and if they don't, well, that's okay. They're on our bench. And then I'm not crazy about the Tank Bigsby, Dylan Sampson running back room off the bench, but again, stylistically, think of the young running backs that could emerge and be more than you expect them to be based on their draft capital, right? Like, I'm not necessarily taking Nick Chubb or Rico Dowdle or even Austin Eckler unless I really punted the running back position and Eckler is going to be somebody I rely upon early in the season. Maybe you could go that route for PPR. But otherwise, I'm taking the young guys that could emerge. And if they don't, you cut them. If Tank Bigsby doesn't end up winning the starting job for Jacksonville, you can cut him for waivers. Same thing with Dylan Sampson. So that gives you a little bit of roster flexibility. I'm locking in that 6-pack of wide receivers. I'm getting upside at quarterback and tight end, even though I didn't spend high picks on it. And I think I have a really good team here. Let me know in the comments below for PPR, as I messed up the video there just a bit, what you guys think of this roster and whether or not it can be one that would do some winning in a 12-team PPR league. And let me know, too, what's the next draft video that you want to see from me. I'll continue to go through the PPR mock draft for 12-team leagues in this format from different draft positions to give an idea of kind of what I'd be looking at from each area of the draft. But we can do any type of draft that you want. Just let me know in the comments below. That'll do it for this video. Subscribe and stay tuned.